Dominic Barrett, age 28, born and raised in Lynchburg, Virginia, not too far from here. Went to college at Elon in North Carolina, spent some time working in D.C. and then in Charleston. And then when this job became available, when I heard about this opportunity, I dropped everything. I said, if there's any way I can have that job and be a part of that, I want to be a part of that. And so I've been here since 2010, along with Steve.
My name is Stephen Miles. I'm the farm manager at Shalom Farms. I am 36 years old.
Well, so Shalom Farms is the core initiative of United Methodist Urban Ministries of Richmond. And right now we're out here at Westview on the James where our farm is. And about 4 or 5 years ago, the camp came to our organization, UMUMR, and said, how can we use this wonderful rural resource to better serve urban Richmond? And from those conversations, this idea of a food project, of a farm came up. There was a recognition that there's a lot of hunger issues, but particularly around healthy food in our urban areas across America and particularly in Richmond. And so the two organizations came together and said, let's see if we can do something starting with a garden or a farm. And we've just been overwhelmed at how it's grown over the last 3 years into what it is today.
Food security, which has to do with availability and access to food, is the primary issue that we're focused on now. So food deserts is where we're working. USDA has sort of defined areas in the city that are food deserts. And usually when we have kids out to the farm, we usually ask them, like, what do you think of when you think of a desert? And so, people are scarcity of resources, and so it's pretty easy to make the connection with the kinds of areas that we're working with when you think about a desert. And that's what it is. It's a scarcity of resources. People just don't have access to food at all in a lot of situations, but especially healthy, fresh, locally grown, organic produce. And the other term that sort of gets thrown around a lot is food swamps. And so these areas are also being designated as food swamps because there's an excess of foods that aren't very good for you. So we're working with people who are hungry, but we're also working with people who have problems with obesity and hypertension and diabetes. And so we're working to address those issues as well.
Well, we see in urban areas all across America, but particularly here in Richmond, large portions of the city where it's just impossible to find healthy food, and where there is that rare healthy fruit or vegetable, it's either highly overpriced or in really poor condition because it's been on the shelf for a week or it's been shipped for thousands and thousands of miles by the time it's gotten there. And so we see these neighborhoods that are both food deserts and food swamps where there's this overabundance of unhealthy, cheap options and really a dearth, a complete absence of the healthy stuff. And so our goal is to find creative ways to get it into those communities, whether it's working now to try to work with corner stores to get it in there, or whether it's putting in an after-school program, putting it in a church food pantry, in a feeding program, in an after-school program. Probably my favorite model that we have is our youth-run farm stands, where kids are learning about growing and selling food right in their own community. And as they're learning about that, they're able to provide that direct access to their family, to their friends, to their community. And I think those are the kind of models that we really get excited about, where folks are part of the process, they're invested themselves, and then they're able to help give back to their community and help invest in their own neighborhood.
And that's one of my favorite things that we do is the education, teaching people about the importance of sustainable agriculture and the importance of caring for the earth.
Our goal at its most basic form is to increase access to healthy food in urban Richmond, but we realize it's more than just growing food. We need to be partnering folks to empower communities to get the educational resources and supports in place to make that happen. We can grow all the food in the world, but if folks don't have access to it, if folks don't know how to cook it, if folks aren't familiar with it, if they don't think it tastes good, if we're growing things that people don't want, then we're not doing that much good. So our goal is really twofold: to increase that direct access, grow as much food in a sustainable way as possible, but also make sure we're building relationships and educating and empowering communities. Really, our goal would be to see neighborhoods 5 and 10 years from now have such great demand for produce, for there to have been that access and that education, so that a food line can't resist being in there, or so that a corner store can't resist selling that healthy food, because there are folks in that community who have had that access, who realize it's a right, and they're able to, along with their partners, demand that right and really, in a comprehensive way, increase that access to healthy food.
As an organic farm, we sort of make a connection between the way that we grow our food and what we believe. And so, we're trying to on a very small scale, eliminate runoff and try to make this place better than when we got here.
Wake up early, work my fingers to the bone. My muddy hands will let you know it's been a long day's work, but I promise you
only way this farm works is with volunteers. We tell volunteers when they come out here, everything that has to happen on a farm happens with them. So one time they're out here, they might be mulching. The next time they might be weeding, they might be harvesting, they might be composting, or they might be doing that all in the same day. I think some folks think they're just going to come out here and weed or just come out here and harvest. No, they're going to see it all. They're going to be a part of everything that we do on the farm, because with such a small staff and such a small overhead like our organization, we really rely on those volunteers to make it happen.
If we have 15 people and they work for 2 or 3 hours, that's 30 hours of work that gets done. And so we always make a point to convey to volunteers when they come out how important they are, and say, that was 30 hours of time that you guys just did, mulching all those broccoli plants, and that's 30 hours of my time or Dominic's time that would be taken up doing this. And so how deeply appreciative we are.
It's important to me because I see access to healthy food as a right. I think so much of us don't think of it on that basic level, but I think access to healthy food really is a human right. And we have a responsibility to make sure that right is available for everyone. And just like the right to vote, not everybody takes advantage of that right, but they ought to have that right. They ought to have that access. And then we can begin to work with folks to say, hey, this is a right you should take advantage of if you have that access. But so many people right now don't even have that access to that basic human need, which is healthy food. We're trying to feed people, and we need to feed people. We need to do that in a responsible way, in a sustainable way, in a healthy way. Too often I have to talk out here about how this generation of kids is on pace to live younger lifespans than their parents. And that's really, really scary. And so when I look at my little brother and big brothers, big sisters, and I see the community that he's growing up in, the opportunities ahead for him, I feel a real sort of responsibility to do whatever I can to empower him and his family and his community, and for us to work together. I think that's what's so exciting about this project, is it's so collaborative, and the lines between those who are volunteering and those who are receiving are always blurred, because we're all doing this together, trying to work together to empower those neighborhoods.
I believe in the importance of good work. And I wouldn't do this if I didn't love the work that I do. Growing food is one of those things that's so rewarding, because when you plant something, in a couple months, you're harvesting it, or depending on what it is, and so you sort of get to see the fruits of your labor. To me, it's sort of an art form, and it's like a way of expressing myself creatively, and a way to not only do something I love, which is working outside and working with my hands, but it's something that benefits a lot of people at the same time. And people love coming out here. I mean, it's a great environment. I feel like it's always a sort of a learning lab. For me, I'm always learning, patience and frugality, and I'm learning humility.
Watch how high we go, with just a little room to grow.
The unique opportunity about this program, what makes it so special, but also what makes it such a challenge, is it's so collaborative. We rely so heavily on support from our volunteers, from our supporters, from folks in the communities that we live. And so every dollar that we get can really go straight towards growing more food and educating more people. Every volunteer hour is really making the farm more successful, more viable. And so I think that's our real challenge, is to continue to bring more people to the table, to make sure that no one is left out, and to make sure that this program is sustainable for the long haul.
How high we go, with just a little room